It's still March 12th, 7:18 p.m. I just want to follow up on the trip, the slight visit back to the artist, and he was still working on it. He added more, so apparently it's not God. Well, I thought it was God. It's Mother Earth. Just when I went to see it, he hadn't put details on it, and so when I went back, I was like, oh. And then I heard someone else say, it's like, oh, it's Mother Earth. So I was like, oh, it's Mother Earth. Initially, that was God, but you know, God, Mother Earth, right? Duality. So he recognized me from yesterday, and so he was just actually, I guess, sitting down to rest for a little bit, and then he's like, oh, I'm just taking a break. And so I just start talking to him, and I'm, you know, transparent, right? 'Cause that's how, clearly, right? And I mentioned to him, right? I told him how a couple days ago, and I went to, I was coming home, and I told him that I actually thought he was somebody else. And then he's like, oh, and he's just like, another artist? And he's like, yeah, something like that. And I said, but, you know, when I approached, he had just had, like, the sun part done, right? So I shared with him that, you know, that night after work, it just inspired, it fueled the remaining lines that I needed for the poem that I was working on. And then, how yesterday morning, I told him how yesterday morning, it's the painting again, or the mural was in my mind. And I shared with him that I had woken up and I was inspired to write again, and 2 poems came out. And so I figured, I'm like, wow, this, and I told him, right, it's evoking in me, triggering in me all these words. And so I had the intention to go and sit in front of it yesterday, thinking it would be done, not knowing, right, how long a mural takes to finish. And I told him I had the intention to sit in front of it and just see what comes out. And he's like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. But he was there with his friend. And so he was just talking about how challenging it is to, you know, work on a piece in the street, because oftentimes people are walking by, they want to talk, and you know, he's like, sometimes I'm just in it. And I said, no, I hear you, right? And I didn't want to, like, intrude much. He's like, but then, and then he reassured me. He's like, but you came at, like, the perfect time, because I was going to take a break. And I was like, okay. So then I just continued telling him, and I said, and then that night I told him, I was honest. I was just like, last night I had an imaginary conversation with you. and so and so I shared with him that I had, you know, that conversation, and that you know, of how it went down. I think I shared it, and so I get to the point, right, where I ask him in my imaginary so I'm sharing the imaginary conversation with him, and so I'm telling him that I turn to you and I ask you, have you named it? And so then at that point I actually ask him, I'm like, so have you named it? Have you given it a name? He's like, no, I usually wait till the end, and I had plans to put some quotes by this Brazilian, he's an educator. He said that yesterday, and I'm like, yeah, I remember you saying that yesterday. But he's like, no, I usually wait until I'm done to name it. And then he's, because I had mentioned that I was writing, he's like, well, you know, since you're a poet, he said, I'm like, oh, I'm not a poet. I'm like, but you know, you're writing, so what words do you have, is what he said. So I just started laughing, because, and then I told him, like, in my dream, and then I confused it, right? So it's just like, in my imaginary conversation that I had with you last night, that's what you tell me. That, you know, you turned to me and you said, no, I haven't. why don't you name it, is what you say to me. And then he's just like, so you're telling me that what I just finished telling you was what you said to yourself? I said, yes. He's laughing. And so I said, okay, so this is what I say to you in my imaginary conversation last night. And so I tell him, and then I say to him, I'm like, and after that, like, I pop out 2 other poems. One of which I titled An Expansion of You. And I think I read it, recorded myself reading it. And so I just changed the dedication and the time and the date of it. Or not the date, because it was yesterday. But I put his name, so his name, well, I guess I'll ask him first before I officially say he doesn't know. I mean, we just had that conversation. But it's dedicated to him and the imaginary conversation we had that night. And so he tells me his name. So apparently he's like, you know, he's known. And I was like, oh, how did that come out? Oh, so after I tell him the story, I come to him and I say to, and I told him, I said, so I came here with the intention to let you know how your piece moved me, and oh, that's a better word. Let me change that here for this other poem that I just finished writing. And so I said to him, I'd like to know. I'd like to see more of your work, is what I said. I think that's how I said it. I don't remember. A little nervous. And just, and then, because I was telling him, like, I want to see what else comes out. like I'm all, if this one piece, I busted out with, you know, all these poems, like, I wonder what else you have that might trigger within me, right? Might move me enough to write something else. And then I think in my head I had planned to just ask him for the address, like that was it. But that's how it came out. And so then he said, well, he offered very freely, like, I can give you a tour. It's walking distance. And I said, oh. And I was like, yeah, I was gonna ask you for the addresses. He's like, oh. And then I was like, no, but that's even better, because then I can ask you about them, right? Like, ask a little bit more questions about his pieces and his murals, and because he had said yesterday that he had more work. So then we just kept talking a little bit more, and so apparently he does a lot of political pieces, and so oh, because he was telling me that this particular piece that he was working on is something completely different compared to what he usually works. I said, oh really? He said, yeah, this is the first time that I do something like this. And he's like, it's different than the other work that I do. When I asked him, that's when he said he does more political work, political pieces. And I said, oh, okay. So then that, you know, it just made me even more curious, or if that's even a word. But so yeah. So I was curious to see specifically, and he shared a little bit more about the context, the political context, and so apparently he was telling me, he's like, yeah, you can look me up, is what he said. You can look me up in Google, and I come up, and I was like, oh, okay. And then he said, just be careful with one website. I said, and I was like, what do you mean? So apparently, because it's such a political piece, it's a website where they kind of have him targeted, and so he was just making me aware. He's like, I'm just letting you know. You know, I don't even know. I wonder what they say, but I just know that they're targeting me because of how I communicate and what I say, and oftentimes his art gets like scratched off and stuff because it kind of stirs up a lot. And then he mentioned something pretty important. He was just like, out here, it's if your work doesn't rattle, I forgot how he said it. But then I'm like, oh, so it's what did I say? I forgot what I said. But it was something along the lines like, okay, you have to be seen. Like you're not making enough noise. You're not making enough noise, right? So as an artist, you're kind of wanting to make enough noise to be seen. And so clearly, I guess he makes noise. And so he was just warning. He's like, I'm just saying this. I'm warning you, in the sense of preparing you in case you do happen to click in. And he's like, there's just pictures from my Instagram feed, and they repost and try to make it seem like it's not great or something. And then he was explaining to me his cause and what he's advocating for, and I was like, oh, makes sense. It's tricky. And I don't listen to the news, right? So I'm just like, I feel like I'm a little bit in the dark. And so yeah, so that happened. And so he asked for my number, and I mentioned, he asked me like what days I have off, and I mentioned to him that I really only have Sundays off right now, and that I'm taking class. And then I mentioned to him, I said, did you know that the city college offers free schooling? And he's like, I don't think he knew, or maybe he did. I think he said he did, and that he actually considered going back during COVID quarantine, and he was asking me about the classes that I was taking, and I shared that with him, and then he's like, yeah, I was thinking about going back, and he's like, I just didn't know what to like focus on. And then he said, that maybe he was thinking of looking into graphic arts to just, try a different style or something, learn a little bit more about computer art, because his is like old school, like what he does. So I was like, yeah, it's free, so I just signed up. So anyways, I just told him that I have papers due in midterms this week. So then that's when he said, I'll text you. I was like, okay. So we can, I guess, plan to go. So I'm curious and kind of excited, because I did come back and I looked him up, and I was kind of like taking it all in, really taking it all in, the information, because I mentioned I don't watch the news, so just kind of informing myself, right? So I'm looking forward to listening to him, because he clearly has a voice, and his voice is out there. There's a few YouTube videos, articles on him, and what he, what he's all about, I guess. But I'm curious to just listen to see. So as I was saying that in my head, another poem came out. So this one is titled, I Want to Listen So That I May See. Born March 12th, 2022. Dedicated to him and the real conversation we had today. I tried looking you up, but I forgot how to spell your last name. I remembered what you said to me. Your voice is out there. You have a voice. Our imaginary conversation unfolded as it needed to. Unintentionally, purposefully, your expansion fueled my expansion. My intention was to see more of your expansion, and you offered it freely. Your voice is out there. You have a voice. I saw you blush lightly, or was it the warmth of the sun on your cheek? I was just trying to be transparent about how your expansion unexpectedly moved me. Your voice is out there. You have a voice. I remembered ga instead of ga. Your face came up. Your words I read, and I saw. I didn't think I would find you in Google, but there you are, just as you said you'd be. Your voice is out there. You have a voice. Thank you for your transparency, because transparency is important to me. I look forward to the tour of your expansion. I want to listen so that I may see. Your voice is out there. You have a voice. So that came out. So yeah, I guess wanted to update on that unexpected move, and I guess we'll see what happens. Yeah. All right, I have 30 minutes. I'm gonna try to wake up because I have one more client and I have work to do and papers to finish, and yeah. Okay. Hi. My name is Yubi, and in case you haven't figured it out, this footage is capturing my experience as I learn to navigate my personal spiritual awakening. I am learning that this experience is unique to each one of us, in whatever way we believe we are embracing living our truth. This just happens to be my journey. And despite me having a graduate degree and a license in clinical social work, this by no means is intended to replace any type of mental health advice. This is just me on a personal level, documenting my experience, shedding light on the truth that I am learning and discovering for myself, and really inviting you along for the ride. If by some magical chance you find this content to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, please click the like button, share the message, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have an Instagram account, a personal one, and one specifically for this channel that you're more than welcome to check out. I'm an open book. I have also created t-shirt designs. I'm wearing my favorite one right now, which is the North Node design, but I have that and other things that you can look at inspired by this process and journey, and I have the link in the description box as well as in the about section of my YouTube channel. So you're more than welcome to check those items out. Any type of support is great. Again, if you find this content really helpful or meaningful, sometimes when we take that step and be vulnerable, with showing what's inside our hearts and what's really our truth, we realize that we're much more connected than what we thought we were. And so I hope that as I'm living this experience, and that you find some type of truth for yourself, or find some type of ability to heal in some way just by relating, just by knowing that you're not alone. That really has been my goal with this process, not just being able to connect with others, but really for my own healing. It's definitely been a therapeutic experience and a very creative one for myself. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best, and we'll see what else comes next for me.